Hello and welcome to Nirmal Bank, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Dadia. We have with us Mr. Nitin Soni, Senior Director, AC at Fitch Ratings, joining in. Welcome to the show, Nitin, and always a pleasure to speak to you and get insights from you. Nitin, firstly, wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well. My first question coming to you is overall, how would you actually describe 2021 as a year for the telecom space?
Yes, thanks, Hiral, for having me on the show, and wishing you and your viewers also Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year 2022. So 2021 has been all about the recovery in the telecom sector. We have seen the telecom companies initially were reluctant to increase the tariffs, but towards the end of the year, all three telcos announced tariff hikes by 20 to 25%, which has been a very positive step for the industry as a whole. I think the 2020 was also about a rising data usage in the country. And we have seen the average data consumption per user per month in India of 18 to 19 GB, which is highest in the world right now. So rising data penetration, consumers moving from 2G services to 4G services, and overall that has benefited the cash flows for the telecom companies, particularly Bharti Airtel and Reliance Jio. On the other hand, we have seen that Vodafone Idea continues to lose market share. They are rapidly losing subscriber base. They are struggling in the market to raise funds to put money into capex. But also the other side of the story is the huge regulatory reforms we have seen in 2021. We saw that Indian regulators and government were quite positive on the sector. They took a number of steps. For example, they increased the tenor of the future spectrum auctions to 30 years. They abolished the spectrum usage charges for the future spectrum auctions. And they also they provided a deferral of AGR and spectrum dues for 4 years, and also provided an option to equitize that deferral, which was particularly targeted at Vodafone Idea. So we have seen a number of reforms which has been quite positive for the overall industry.
Right. So now when you think about, the entire universe goes, what should we be looking forward to at least in the first half of FY22 for the telecom space?
So at Fitch Ratings, we have an improving outlook for 2022 for the Indian wireless telecom sector. And we believe that the tariff hikes, which were announced in the month of December, November and December, they are going to increase the average revenue per user by around 20 to 25%. The average revenue per user for the Indian telcos are still one of the lowest at an average of 130, 135 rupees, while Bharti Airtel is about 154, 155, and Reliance Jio also thereabouts. We expect the average revenue per user actually to increase to around 170 to 180 levels in the next 12 months, driven by these tariff hikes. Secondly, I think the growth of data packs and data traffic will continue. But I think the growth, what we have seen in the last 3 to 4 years, I think that will slow down a bit, but we could still cross 20 GB per user per month as the data consumption in the country. And also, I think there is also a possibility that there could be another tariff hike. We believe that could happen in the next 12 to 18 months, or it could even take 24 months. It's hard to guess the timing of that tariff hike, but there are indications in the industry, as we have seen Bharti Airtel's chairman also saying that in the long term, they see average revenue per user around 300 levels for a sustainable return on investment in the industry. So I think these are the things we are looking at. Obviously, on the 5G front, we expect the 5G spectrum auction to happen in 2022. There could be some delay. Maybe it could happen in the second half, as the government has announced. And there could be a lot of competition in terms of acquiring 5G spectrum auctions between Jio and Bharti. And we expect limited participation from Vodafone Idea in the 5G spectrum auctions.
Right. So overall, would it be right to say, Nitin, that there have been green shoots of recovery that have started to sprout in the sector? We are starting to see steady improvement with regards to where ARPU levels go. And you had the government of India, which announced a relief package as well, and then the telecoms followed this up with tariff hikes. So would this be a green shoot of recovery for them?
I think it's right to say that stars have finally aligned for the sector after many years, and the tariff hikes as well as the regulatory reforms have happened for the industry, which has been positive. And industry structure has rightly corrected with Reliance Jio and Bharti as the two top telcos, and Vodafone Idea, as a weak telco and still losing market share to Jio and Bharti. So I think going forward, we will continue to hear news about tariff hikes, improvement in average revenue per user, and movement of 2G users to 4G users. And we will also hear a lot of developments on 5G preparation by the telcos. Because as we move along, all these telcos will have to invest a significant amount of money in preparing for 5G, whether it's investing in fiber infrastructure or whether paying the upfront spectrum payments in the spectrum auctions. They really have to start preparing for 5G commercial launch, which could happen in 2023.
Right. And overall, what's the kind of traction or growth are you expecting to see with regards to where ARPU levels go?
So we do expect average revenue per user to increase anywhere about 20 to 25% to around 170 to 180 levels on a monthly basis per user in the next 12 months. And actually, the increase could be higher if the smartphone sales picks up and the movement of 2G users to 4G accelerate rapidly, because we have seen in the last 2 years during the COVID era, the smartphone sales actually went down, and that led to a bit of a decline in the movement of 2G to 4G users. And as 2G consumers move to 4G, they obviously go for a higher priced 4G plans, and that also increases the average revenue per user for the telcos. So definitely, average revenue per users are looking to grow in the next 12 months. It could grow higher if there is another tariff hike in the next 12 months, which we believe it's a bit difficult given the timing in the next 12 months, as they've already taken one tariff hike, but it could happen anywhere in 12 to 24 months.
Right. And overall, if you see in terms of where the financial model of these telecom companies go, or the financial profile of these telecom companies go right now, at what rate are you expecting revenue growth? And overall, do you think the operating leverage is something which is going to be better? I mean, we'll see a better operating leverage from here on, which will translate into healthy expansion in profitability?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. So we do expect revenue to rise by 15 to 20% for Indian wireless segment for these telcos. And while EBITDA will increase more than 35%. So there is a fair bit of operating leverage in this business. And we also have to remember that as the users move to 4G and 5G services, the cost to deliver per GB of data actually declines. So there is a significant operating leverage in this business. And as revenue increases on tariff hikes, the impact on EBITDA or the growth on EBITDA is much higher. So we expect EBITDA margins to expand for both Jio and Bharti. And I think fairly Vodafone Idea would also benefit from these tariff hikes, and their EBITDA margin should also increase with the tariff hikes and with the rising data usage. But in terms of subscriber base, we do believe that Jio will continue to gain market share as well as Bharti. We forecast that Bharti will gain about 15 to 20 million users annually, mostly at the expense of Vodafone Idea. And Vodafone Idea will continue to lose about 50 to 70 million subscribers on an annual basis.
Right. And overall, Nitin, in terms of where the debt levels go, what's your expectation if you have to look at FY22? I mean, we're at the end of it almost now, 3 months away. And 23, how do you see the deleveraging side of it panning out? Because I think Bharti Airtel already concluded a rights issue. And you have Vodafone Idea as well, which is scouting for a fundraiser.
Yeah, that's again a great point. So on if you see the debt levels of Reliance Jio and Bharti Airtel, Reliance Jio has actually raised a lot of equity, and Reliance Jio has raised about $20 billion of equity at Jio platform, which has led to a significant deleveraging of its balance sheet. And similarly, if you look at Bharti Airtel, the company has also raised about over $11 billion of equity in the last 3 years. And they still have few levers to monetize certain assets. All in all, the equity raising by Jio and Bharti have significantly improved their balance sheet position. And they are in a very comfortable position to go and acquire the 5G spectrum assets. And their debt to EBITDA ratios are also at a very healthy level. For particularly Bharti Airtel, which we rate at BBB minus with a negative outlook, and negative outlook is basically due to the outlook on the India sovereign rating. We expect Bharti's FFO net leverage to actually go below 2 times in FY22 and will remain around 2 times in FY23 or below that number, driven by the tariff hikes and all these equity issuances which has happened. So Bharti did a rights equity issue of 210 billion INR, out of which 25% they raised upfront, and the balance amount of equity they can ask at any point of time, based on how the 5G spectrum goes and how they require money for the capex. But overall, both these companies are in a very healthy balance sheet position. The problem lies at Vodafone Idea. When you see Vodafone Idea's balance sheet, they have a huge debt pile, most of which is in the form of AGR and spectrum dues. And they have received a fair bit of relief from the government in terms of deferral of AGR and spectrum dues for 4 years, and the option to equitize that deferral amount. But having said that, Vodafone Idea is still in a very weak position given their weak cash flow generations and their insufficient cash flows to do capex. So all in all, it's a story of 2 different sides. Jio and Bharti in a very comfortable position. Vodafone Idea still struggling to have a a good balance sheet.
Right. And Nitin, very lastly, if you have to talk about, the growth, we're talking about the matrix which are improving as well. What will actually lead the next phase of growth? Will it be a combination of, say, the non-teleco businesses, or will it be a combination of teleco and non-teleco?
I think that's an interesting question. So we believe that a major chunk of the growth will be driven by the wireless growth, and that is driven by the subscriber growth and tariff hikes. But I think on the other hand, non-telecom revenue is also growing quite rapidly. If you look at the fixed line segment of the business of the telcos, fixed line business is something which is underpenetrated in the country. We, as a country, we really have at least 200 million households. And if you look at Bharti or Jio's number of fixed line connections they have, I think the penetration is still in single digits or easily less than 10% in terms of the household fixed line penetration. So there is a huge potential of growth in the fixed line segment for these telcos. On the other hand, if you look at the data centers, I think that's an area of growth for the telcos. both Jio and Bharti are investing in the data center assets. Data center are likely to grow much higher than the other parts of the telecom industry, given rising usage of data consumption and the requirement of storing data. So data center across Asia, we have seen is a potential growth driver for the telcos. And also, I think the other non-telecom segments includes the TV segment and also the enterprise segment. These two segments, particularly enterprise, is also going to grow rapidly with several enterprises using a lot of enterprise services from the telcos.
Right. So overall, these could be growth drivers we should be looking at as well. Thank you, Nitin, so much for joining us on the show. As always, a pleasure to speak to you, get insights from you. Thank you. Stay safe and speak to you soon again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.